My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Welcome back, folks. Another great episode. Today, zooming in all the way from beautiful Wasaga Beach, Ontario. We've got a very experienced real estate entrepreneur. Andrew Brennan has been in the space for, I believe, 17 years, 15 years as a full-time real estate investor. And these days, he does a lot, especially with multifamily properties. And today, we're going to be talking about a couple of things. We're going to be talking about cash for keys and VTBs. I kind of like the way that sounds. So Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
All right, let's start off. Just give us a little snapshot of what your real estate investing business looks like right now as of mid-July 2024.
Okay. Well, today we hold close to 1,000 units. I raise money from private investors. We buy small 10 units and up apartment buildings. I own a property management company, renovation company to take care of, I guess honestly, most of the clients are my own properties, but we do some third-party management as well. And then just, do a little bit of consulting for people buying multifamily and the occasional seminars, training, or podcasts, whatever, help people build content and stuff like that.
Very cool, Andrew. So it sounds like you've got one of those vertically integrated companies.
Correct.
Nice. All right, very good. Now, a lot of folks, I hear a lot of Canadian real estate investors, especially in your neck of the woods, complaining about the price of properties and owners being out to lunch with how much they're asking for them. Are you still finding decent cash flowing multifamily properties in Ontario? And if so, what kind of market areas?
It is a challenge to get anything cash flowing. Basically, around the Greater Toronto area and some of the larger cities in Canada, the cap rate has gotten below the interest rate. So anytime you're buying something in that scenario, you're losing money. There are the few odd deals around, especially if you can like reposition a building. But to be honest, I mean, I'm just sitting, taking it easy, waiting for rates to come down. So helping a few other people buy like their first building, taking advantage of some of the opportunities for some prices have come down, but not enough for me to want to jump in at the
To
particular moment.
actively be beating the bushes looking for deals. Got it. So you're kind of in a holding pattern with your portfolio at this particular time.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Very good. So you talk about yourself and some of your clients and people that you work with using the cash for keys strategies to boost up the value of buildings. So again, just for some of our listeners who may or may not be in Canada, one of the challenges in Ontario is that the landlord tenant laws are typically very, very much more in favor of the tenants than the landlords. And it's a real challenge to raise rents above what the government tells you can do. It's a real challenge to kick out tardy tenants or people that aren't doing what they agreed to be doing. It's a real challenge to deal with these kind of situations all over the place, but especially in Ontario. So, Andrew, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with that and what this whole cash for keys things is all about?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. As a landlord in Ontario, even if a written lease is up, we don't have the right to tell the tenant that we're not renewing and they have to leave. It's totally up to the tenant. The only time a landlord can really get a tenant out is based on, say, tenant performance, and so they're causing problems, not paying the rent. Even then, it's still currently like 6 to 8 months to get somebody out.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is a disadvantage to have rent control, but I ended up using the cash for keys strategy to put it to my advantage, because there are a lot of buildings in Ontario with low rents compared to market, because landlords just can't raise their rents. Like this year we're allowed, or actually a couple of years in a row, we're allowed 2.5% annual rent increase. Okay. For anything that was built previous to 2018.
Okay.
So I own buildings today where, I've got tenants that are three, four, five, $800 under market rent per month, right? And there's nothing I can do about it. But we tried to start buying buildings with low rents and then applying our cash for key strategy to turn the rents around and drive up the building value. Right. So it's basically the only thing that has actually kept me in Ontario investing, because, we've got down to like a 4 cap rate. And so a capitalization rate of 4 is really good when you raise rents. Right.
Mhm.
So that's one of the reasons why I still invest in Ontario.
All right. So basically, the strategy is you buy a building that's got a bunch of people in there paying under market rent. And then you go to those tenants and you say, hey, I'll give you X amount if you move out in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is, you agree with them. They move out, you get a new tenant in, and you're able to now rent out that unit at full market value, which could be 500, 600, $800 a month more than it was previously. And the way that the banks and everybody determine the value of a multifamily property is based on the profitability, the net operating income of that property. So by increasing that rent, increasing that profitability, you've now lifted the value of the property. Am I
Yeah, correct.
summarizing that fairly well?
Yeah. But basically what I do is I challenge my staff at the property management company to deal with people. Like there's a certain process we do, but basically I tell them anybody that is, say, $200 under market, if they're unhappy or think that they're going to fall in love and decide to move out to a new unit or whatever, let's offer them $3,000 to $4,000 per $100 they are under market rent. Okay.
So that's
And
kind of your magic number. For
yeah,
every $100 they're under market rent, you'll offer to pay them $3,000 or $4,000.
yeah. So I try and get them to start a little bit lower, but
Yeah.
that's basically what I tell them. That's the approval without having come back to the office and say, yes, like, we got someone, they want, $10,000 to leave for $100 under market rent. And we're going to say no. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, so 3 to 4,000 for them to go. But if you're dealing with a capitalization rate of, say, 4, that's basically 27, 30,000, depending on how you do the calculation, value increase. At a 5 cap rate, that would be, say, 20, I don't know, 2-ish thousand value increase. So we buy a lot of projects where we try to turn the rent rollover in 3 to 5 years, drive up building value, go back to the bank and pull money out.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's how we do it. And we have we don't go to someone who's 1,000 under market the first day. And offer them 20 grand. We'll lump them in with the first offer, say 2,500 or 5,000 across the board, that everybody got the letter.
Right.
Right. And when we move our way up, right.
Yeah. Hoping that some of them will jump on that. But if they don't, you know exactly what your bottom line is,
Yeah.
what it makes sense for you to come out of pocket to get them out the door.
Yeah. We don't want to give the guy, say, that's 1,000 under 20 grand to leave. And he tells the guy right next door who's 250 under that he got 20 grand. He's going to want 20
Yeah,
grand.
exactly.
Right. So we
So
kind of,
how do you kind of that's a very delicate tightrope that you have to kind of walk on there. What have you found has worked best for having those conversations and not
well,
getting them to spill the beans?
so there's a couple things. We have like a standard form letter we send out, especially if we just bought a building.
Yeah, that goes to
Um,
everybody, right?
it goes to pretty much anybody that would say 150, 200 under market.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that letter says, we're new owners looking to transition the building, such and such, and you've been approved for up to 5,000 if you would like to transition to new living arrangements, things like that, right? So then hopefully we get a few people calling in, and then one of the ladies that does it for me, she'll talk with them, see what their rent is, and then try and work on some solutions. To be honest, sometimes we'll even as long as I offer something in exchange for, say, a new lease to be signed, I'm allowed to, say, offer them a payment for not even leaving, but for just taking a rent increase.
Okay. How does that work, Andrew?
Well, so under the Landlord Tenant Act in Ontario,
Yeah.
A tenant can anytime sign a new lease for in exchange for something. So, for example, they might sign a new lease for $50 higher because I was going to put in laundry into their unit.
Right.
Right? They might sign a new lease for 250 bucks higher because I gave them a $10,000 payment and they needed to buy a car. Right?
Yeah.
Or what we've done is we've made arrangements for, say, a tenant to go to a hotel, say at my expense for a couple of weeks. We renovate their unit and they sign they come back and they sign a lease at a newer, higher rate, right? We still might also give them some cash.
Yeah.
Anything that helps us get the rent up, we're looking at doing. We'll get you a moving truck, whatever. The thing with cash for keys, most people think you're paying problem tenants to leave.
Hmm.
And that's not the case. We're paying good tenants that usually have been there way too long, and we have no problem keeping them except for their rents are low.
Well,
Right?
that is very, very cool because I've heard of the whole cash for keys concept quite a few times, but I didn't know that in Ontario you could actually redo the lease with them. It's not really cash for keys, it's cash for a new lease idea. Yeah, so that gives you lots more opportunity there because you don't necessarily need to get that tenant out.
Yeah, you just have to make sure that it's best to try and get the tenant to acknowledge either by recording their phone call, which we'll tell them we'll record a call, or
Yeah.
via email that they are signing at their own free will and we are not in any way trying to manipulate them or stuff like that. Because I
Uh,
know, I know, like rent eviction is a very popular thing. So we do some splitting units and stuff like that. It's a little bit different. We'll actually offer cash for keys to make the process go smoother. But you can't, under false pretenses, get a tenant to agree to leave because you said you're going to sell the property and
mhm.
then not do what you're supposed to do, right? So we make sure everything's signed. We have extra documentation above what the landlord tenant board requires, right? And they're signing that, they're acknowledging that they're giving up their rights. Even if they're doing a new lease, they sign to terminate their current tenancy,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
everything starts fresh, right?
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have learned some lessons along the way or seen some other people that didn't quite do it right.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned something, the whole rent eviction type thing. How does that, uh, what usually plays out there? And you mentioned that sometimes you'll do unit splitting or something like
Yeah.
that. So I'm not familiar with that.
So in Ontario, especially in the Toronto area, there's a hot topic called, they call it renoviction. So
Renovation.
people
Okay,
are
renovation.
renovating to
Yeah.
evict.
Yeah.
Well, there are some landlords that will say do a renovation where you really don't need to renovate or you don't need to remove the tenant, but they're just trying to get rid of a tenant. So, like for example, you cannot get an order to evict a tenant even for renovations unless you have an order from the board, which includes getting a building permit.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you move a toilet, you can get a building permit, but it's a very hot topic. And the government has actually increased the fines, I think up to, like, depending if you're a personal investor or a corporation, I think it's up to over 100 grand for a corporation if you're in
Wow.
violation.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's lots of times when we buy, like, perfect example, I bought, unusual for me to buy duplexes, but I have 4 duplexes in a row. And I just split them into 8 single family semi-detached homes. And now I'm working on making those 4 original duplexes into 8 triplexes, right? So each one of those now single family home has 1 tenant. I've started issuing the documentation to remove them. So I'm demolishing their units so they have no right to come back, but I'm truly getting a permit to split the units and making one larger family dwelling into 3 apartments. Okay.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
fine. But a lot of people don't go through that step and they just tell them, oh, you got to get out because I got to fix something.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And, and unfortunately, sometimes tenants have, but I shouldn't say unfortunately, but there are times when tenants have the right to come back and they will come back at the exact same rent even if you renovate it. Right. So landlords try and be manipulative and, try and get tenants out and sometimes infringe on their rights.
So in that situation where, let's say you bought those single family homes and you're turning them into triplexes, are you obligated to bring the original? Well, first of all, if you renovate the tenant, I would imagine you have to pay them something to get them to leave, or no, not necessarily.
Correct. Under Ontario law, sorry, under the Ontario landlord rules, if there's 4 units or less, you have to pay them 1 month's rent. 4 units or less in the building.
Okay.
If there's 5 or more, you have to pay them 3 months rent, right?
Okay. So in those cases, you'd have to pay somebody 1 month's rent to get them to leave legally. And then you said there might be the obligation as well to allow them to come back in to that newly renovated place and rent at the same amount. So they would
Correct.
get one of the 3 units.
Yeah, so I don't do renovations and removing a tenant. I do demolishing of units,
Oh, okay.
right? And so, for example, going back to the scenario of where I'm trying to make 8 triplexes, through the property manager, I issue the proper documentation. You have 4 months notice to go, and I am entitled to give you, or responsible to give you, 1 month's rent. But
Mhm.
I tell the property management company, I don't want to have a hassle of going to the board and this being delayed, right? I'm willing to pay, a couple extra grand or a couple extra months cash for keys if they'll just go in 30 days,
Hmm.
right? So especially since I've got 8 of them to do, I want to time them in a certain manner so not all 8 are empty and not
Yeah.
some are delayed because the tenant won't get out. And I just don't want the headache, so I'll spend an extra maybe 20 or 25 grand in total for those 8 units to get them out on my schedule and without something being delayed, what seems like forever.
And in those cases with those, just out of curiosity, those particular properties, are you actually demolishing the whole thing, or is the structure pretty much the same and you're reconfiguring the inside part? Like, is it a full on demolition, or is it a massive, massive, massive renovation?
No, there's no footprint change.
Okay.
There's no major renovations. Basically, it's the fire code work, a couple extra kitchens, and I think in that one, an extra bathroom and a new side entrance, right?
But the
So, I mean,
but the language that you're able to use there is more along the demolition versus renovation. Therefore, you don't need to offer those tenants the same rent and get them back into the place.
correct. So under the Ontario Landlord Tenant Board,
Yeah.
in my case, because the unit is no longer, say, anything close to what it used to be, the Landlord Tenant Board says I'm demolishing. I have to actually check demolish on the form, and it comes with no right to come back.
Okay. Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, you've definitely got a lot of experience when it comes to dealing with the intricacies of all of this kind of stuff. Um, Very, very fascinating, Andrew. Yeah, time flies when we're having fun here, my friend. So if people want to connect with you, if they want to find out more, if they want to chat with you and get some advice, where should they go?
You can email me directly at andrew@palmtreecapital.ca or our website, palmtreecapital.ca.
Perfect. Well, hey, thank you very much for sharing those insights. I learned something new here today, and I'm sure everybody else did as well.
It was my pleasure. Thank
All
you.
right, everybody, take care, and we will see you on the next episode. Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now, at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.